Well, hello everyone, and welcome to our program. I'm Pastor Roberto Miranda for Pray TV and Covenant for New England. We welcome you and are delighted to spend this time together with you. And today I have Pastor Bryan Wilkerson with us. Bryan is a senior pastor of Grace Chapel, located in Lexington, Massachusetts. And I am looking forward to a very, very stimulating conversation. Bryan, welcome to our program. It's great to have you here.
Thank you, Roberto.
Maybe we can just begin by letting our viewers know a little bit about Grace Chapel. I know the people in New England know about your congregation because it's been around for a significant number of years, and also its influence and the size as well. But just introduce us a little bit to what you guys are doing there, what you see as your mission and calling, and maybe what God is doing there of note right now.
Sure. Okay, well, thank you, Roberto. Great to be with you and looking forward to our conversation here today.
Thank you for coming.
Thinking about the work of God here in Boston and New England. I came to Grace Chapel about 12 years ago, summer of 2000, and having spent most of my life growing up and ministering in the New York suburban, metropolitan New York area. So it was a big move for us, but one we were really excited about. And I was familiar with Grace Chapel. It's got a great reputation, a great legacy, in the Northeast in particular. So I was very honored, really, to be invited to come and to serve. And so we've had a great time there now for these past 12 years or so. And really, Grace had a strong reputation long before I got there for strong biblical teaching, for commitment to missions regionally and globally, local evangelism, children and student ministries. So that was kind of what Grace has been known for a long time. So I inherited really a very vibrant ministry. So we spent a few years kind of getting to know each other as a staff and a congregation and began to get some momentum, and really I've had a great time since then.
Was it a reach for you? I mean, coming
yes,
from
it was. It was a big stretch.
Probably a smaller congregation, maybe less influential and so on. What kinds of adjustments did you have to make?
In
New England, of course.
New England was a big change too, right? So I had started coming out of seminary at a small church on Long Island, just outside New York City, right over the city line. About 50 folks, small Baptist church, little building.
Wow.
And thought I'd stay for a couple of years and then move on to something else. And ended up falling in love with the people and the community and the ministry, and we stayed for 16 years.
Oh.
And had a great, great time there. Really grew up in ministry, grew up as a family, had our 4 kids there, and built the church, added some space, added staff, and we reached about 400 or 500 or so, and we're having a great time. I really was not looking to leave, but the Lord kind of got hold of me and my wife Karen and our hearts when Grace Chapel called, and so it was tough starting over.
Well, it's to the credit of Grace Chapel that they would choose probably a pastor who was not well known, maybe one ministry, and all of a sudden to bring you into this renowned congregation.
Really?
My hat's off to them. I mean, you must have done something really remarkable there in your character and so on to attract that kind of attention.
Well, I'm not sure what it was, and I actually
don't be modest. You know, if you feel there's anything there you want for us to learn about, that'd be great. Maybe what they saw in you, or what. Perhaps
I guess what they felt like they needed was they needed a strong preacher-teacher with a love for the local church who would kind of just be committed to that congregation. And I had enough experience to have figured some things out, but still had room to grow, and it just felt like a good match.
And what kinds of things did you learn when you got here? What was different?
Well, the complexity. The thing about a large church is the complexity. So in my previous church, I could be. A staff meeting was 3 or 4 of us in my office or my living room or the pizza joint down the street, and we didn't need formal meetings. We just did things. We made decisions. We moved on. Suddenly, the staff meeting is 50 people, none of whom I know, and there are layers and layers of complexity and departments and divisions and history and legacy, and every decision you make compounds 2 and 3 other staff members and their ministries. So that was a lot to get used to. And having been in a congregation for 16 years, a smaller one, I knew everybody. I knew their spouses, their kids, their parents, where they worked, their schools. I'd been in their homes. And suddenly I got dropped in a congregation of 2,000 people with no knowledge. And that was hard for me to get used to. Probably I still miss some of those pastoral moments that I don't get quite as many of in a larger church environment. But
and yet, you know, Grace Chapel, despite being in a suburban area, ministering to, I know you have a significant number of affluent parishioners has been developing and evolving. You know, sometimes we just had, for example, in our church, a visit from the Christian Science Monitor this past Sunday because they wanted to interview sort of growing churches. But generally, when people speak of growing churches in the Boston area, they think of ethnic churches.
Right.
But they don't realize often that there's also a lot of really middle class, upper middle class, suburban churches that God is really blessing as well.
Right.
And that the gospel is growing and that they're having an impact, they're evangelizing people, and God is leading them to evolve and to attract, multi-ethnic community. And Grace Chapel seems to be doing some of that.
Right.
Is that so?
Yeah, I would say
what is
so.
happening there right now?
And I feel like it's a very different environment now than even it was 10 or 12 years ago when I first got here, in terms of thriving, vibrant, multicultural churches. There are just many, many more of them than there were. So at Grace a few years ago, we kind of took a little break to refresh our vision. Staff and elders entered kind of a revisioning process. Lord, what do you have for us the next 10 years, the second decade of the 21st century? And we spent some time in prayer and reflection and retreat and things like that over the course of probably 18 months, asking the Lord for direction. And we came out of that season with a fresh vision, what we called the New Day of Grace, is what we called it, and a commitment to three things. We felt the Lord calling us to going deeper, getting closer, and reaching wider.
Well,
so
yes.
Going deeper in our knowledge of Scripture, our practice of prayer, the spiritual disciplines, deeper in worship, getting closer to one another in true community. One of the challenges in a large church is helping people get connected in real community. We wanted to work harder at that. And then reaching wider. Grace has always had a heart for lost people, people who are far from God. So how could we reach our neighbors, and also how could we reach the city and the world? So we kind of refreshed that vision, deeper, closer, wider, and had three initiatives coming out of that. One was to revitalize our core ministry around those three values. Take a look at everything we do. And how is it helping us go deeper, get closer, reach wider? So we've taken a 360 review of all of our ministries and invested some renovation in our local Lexington campus. Second piece was to launch new campuses. We really were landlocked where we were. We couldn't fit any more people. We didn't want to add more services. So we said, let's set up a campus somewhere else, learning from a lot of the multi-site churches. So the Lord led us, to our surprise, really to a location in Wilmington, about 20 minutes north of us, and provide us with a wonderful location right on Route 93. And so we now have a campus there. They've been functioning for a year and a half now.
And God seems to be doing some amazing things and surprised you in a sense
it's
of
just
with
been
the
terrific. We have
growth and
600
development.
people worshiping there every week, 2 services, they're full, a couple hundred kids, 100 teenagers in the youth group. So we broadcast the message from the Lexington campus. If it's me or another staffer, that message gets broadcast. But otherwise, everything there is live. There's live worship. There's a campus pastor.
So you do the worship and prepare everything, and then your message at the Lexington
screen
is
drops
being
down.
sent. Wow.
And people watch.
And people are fine with that?
Absolutely. Everyone. It was a real struggle convincing folks that this could work in New England. But it's worked
especially
wonderfully.
an affluent, probably a middle class, suburban kind of community. They might expect a different kind of
right. People will never sit for that.
Maybe adult youth and that kind of thing, a younger type church. But you have a very diverse group of people.
Yep,
there. And,
it's very, very diverse, and
they've taken to it.
They really have. Every once in a while, we have a technical glitch. But really, in a year and a half, we've only had one time had to go live with a preacher in Wilmington.
So there's got to be a sermon there in hand.
There's always one ready. There's always a backup plan, Plan B. So we're just thrilled with that. And it just seems to us, knowing how difficult it is to start a church from scratch with 30 or 40 people, we launched with about 300 people. And within a year and a half, they've doubled. And most of those people are new people, not in church or have given up church, walked away from church, seekers, a lot of young families. So we're just thrilled. Yeah,
well, what you're saying should be an encouragement. I know it's an encouragement to me. And I think I see two things of note here. Number one, the fact that you have to, well, maybe 3, seek the Lord's face and illumination as you did, coming together. Lord, what are you speaking to us? Declaring that vision
Right.
I mean, it's so important to declare that vision because it becomes not only a point of departure, but also almost like a prophetic act before the Lord of what you want for Him to do, as you did, seeking those three elements. And then finally, the fact that evangelism still possible in this area, and that it can be done if you have the courage to go ahead and launch on something that you feel God has spoken to you, and that there's hope in New England for growth and evangelism.
Yeah, we're very, very excited. Yeah. So, Lord willing, we'll do some more campuses. We're looking now at where another one might be. They may not all look exactly like the Wilmington campus, but we want to look at some more opportunities to do that going forward.